Good evening and welcome to a 2023 edition of PharSide Pholios. We are celebrating Audiobook Month as well as Rainbow Book Month during the month of June because we are super jamming in June with our marvelous reads with a special series of author interviews along with all of our daily posts on social media because we're all things books and all things reading. So we're all about our readers and what they're reading, what we're reading, and we like to share back and forth. So we're on the far side are so happy to have with us today none other than M.A. Beasley, Monique Beasley. She's a Navy veteran, currently a dental assistant of over 15 years. She's been married going on 20 years with 2 grown kids. She loves books and movies since she was a little girl. Newly published author of her first horror book, which we get to talk about on today. And she found a passion in writing and hope that this will be the first of many more books to come. Welcome to the far side, Monique Beasley.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited.
Well, we're so glad to have you with us to talk about your debut novel. So tell us about who Monique Beasley is as an author.
I'm still kind of figuring that out. I know I definitely wanted to start with horror just because I grew up watching horror movies. Even when I was really little, my dad used to let me watch movies like Child's Play and Tales from the Crypt and all kind of stuff. My mom was like, "Why are you letting her watch that stuff?" But I just loved it. I just kind of fell in love with the genre and movies, books, just all kind of things. So when I decided to write down my first story, I was like, well, I know where I'm going to start. So, yeah.
And so, I mean, you talk about, kind of falling in love with the horror genre as, a child. Were there any books? Were you reading any books in that genre that early on?
That early on, yes. I was reading all the Goosebumps series, everything by R.L. Stine, and just pretty much any scary book that my parents would let me read. And so it's just kind of grown from there.
And okay, so we've got this book called The Warrior Angel. So what inspired this kind of angels and demons type storyline?
Well, as far as back as my love for horror goes, there's not a whole lot that scares me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, but movies like anything that has to deal with demons kind of thing, The Exorcist, any kind of movies like that, those are the movies that still really get under my skin.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to start there. I kind of put myself in a couple of the scenes, just kind of thinking what would scare me in that situation. And that kind of helped me write the book. So that's where I started.
Okay. So like the book itself opens up like in the prologue, just, shout out for the eye-opening visual because you really do a good job of giving a reader an able, to picture it, to draw the picture in their head with the way that you tell the story right from the jump. This foul smell creeps into my nostrils and pulls me out of my rim. Unfortunately, this smell isn't unfamiliar. How does this familiar experience set the stage and connect to the future, for, the character?
Oh, well, just from the movies that I've seen in the past and just from what I know personally, that whenever there is a demon presence, supposedly, there is that kind of foul, horrible smell. So I kind of bring that in the beginning, and the characters throughout the story, whenever something is about to happen, they're kind of experience the same kind of smell. So it goes back to like, this is the same demon that is affecting them now in the present and even in the mother's past, and it just kind of connects to this one thing.
Mm-hmm. Now, so what happens to like that like main character at the beginning of the story? What happens to Michael in the prologue is, sort of like a sleep paralysis. Some people would describe it as sleep paralysis,
Mm-hmm.
or as kind of wives' tales, or folklore, as the witch riding you, which prevents you from you can't move, you can't speak, you see what's happening going on around you, but you can't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of how does this encounter, so to speak, shape the rest of the story, or lead to or spring into the revelation of any long-held family secrets?
Well, the family secrets, that kind of comes out towards the middle, maybe the end of the book. But for this particular character, Michael, in the beginning, he gets the sleep paralysis to where he can just kind of hear things happening. He can't move. He can't speak. So that I'm thinking that the demon he knows what he's doing. He's very smart.
Mm-hmm.
He knows that he will do anything to help his fiance, and he doesn't want him. He wants her. So if he gets up to try to help, he's trying to prevent him from helping.
Mm-hmm.
And the demon kind of does this throughout the book as well. There'll be different times where the characters are, they're scared beyond belief, or they can't get to somebody or something because the demon is preventing them from doing that. He's very smart and he knows what he's doing, and he'll find one way or another to get you. So, or to get what he wants. And for each character, it's different. Like he stopped him by giving him the sleep paralysis, so he couldn't get up and help. In different characters and things that happen with them, something else will happen. Something
Okay.
in the way, something confuses them, and that's all him.
And I think that's another interesting aspect to the horror genre, that everything is not kind of cookie cutter and or predictable.
Mm-hmm.
That everything, how, in this case, a demon would interact with one person
Mm-hmm.
would be different than maybe, the next person, even if it is kind of something that's going on generationally.
Exactly. Each situation is a little different.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that you do a really good job of doing is you incorporate the use of time, to tell the story, kind of moving from, an event from like 10 years prior, you give us a timeline, and then moving into the present day. How did you kind of map out the times in order to kind of maintain the flow of the story?
I had to write out a very specific outline. Sometimes I would end a chapter and then be like, okay, so now I have to go back. Now what happened? So I have to go back. I'm like, okay, where are we here? Okay, here we go. That way everything doesn't get confused or something. It's almost like I have two different stories going. And at the good part, I'll switch over to something else and then go back and forth. Yeah, it took a lot of planning and a lot of going back and forth to make sure I made that understandable. But it was fun.
So does this, like, we're right at the beginning for our readers. We're talking about The Warrior Angel with our guest author, M.A. Beasley, Monique Beasley, who's discussing her debut novel, The Warrior Angel. And we're like right at the beginning of this amazing debut novel. Does the car accident with Gracie and Lucas at the beginning set them kind of on a course of going back in time to uncover the evil that has followed their family? Or is it simply kind of like a springboard for like future events?
Well, without the car accident in the beginning, then the main character, Gracie, she would have never learned about this demon, she would have never learned about her past. She would have never, nothing would have happened. She could have just lived in bliss. But because of this crazy car accident, the mom comes out and, she says this prayer that she thinks is a prayer, and this leads on to the horrible things that are happening to them in the present time. And if the mother didn't know about this from her own experience, she would have never learned about these dark family secrets. So the car crash had to play a key role in the very beginning, just kind of set the stage.
Okay. So now the appearance of this demon in the prologue literally drags the character out of bed, which followed the character being dragged out the bed. Then it's followed by a freak car accident coming out of a Wendy's drive-through, and then you go to work and get bitten by a creepy patient who warns of he's coming. So that whole scenario with the creepy looking patient, you're going into your dentist, your work in a dental office, which, I mean, you have background knowledge of, as, I guess there's a way to kind of incorporate yourself into the story, having this creepy patient come in who warns he's coming. How important was it for you to kind of layer your story like that?
Like what led me to the certain scenes, I guess, or
yeah.
Well, like I said, each character kind of gets haunted in their own specific way. Like the biting of the patient, I just made the main character a dental assistant because I'm a dental assistant, and it made it so much easier that way. But there's like so many different things that are happening to each of the characters, and each of the way that they are affected, and each of the ways that they are encountered with something that, like that patient that bites her. Apparently that, the demon goes into this patient and is just trying to warn her, and it tries to put itself in each of their lives in their own specific way. There's even different scenes with the son Lucas where he's in his own world and he gets haunted by different things around his school. It just kind of puts itself in there. So there's no one way to haunt you. It's just it'll come attack you how it feels it should.
All right. So with that premise, so without giving the whole story away, can you provide those who are watching live and those who will catch us by replay kind of what the premise is of the Warrior Angel?
Okay. So it starts out, like we said, there's a big car crash. The mother and son, they go to the hospital. There's all these, everything's running around. The mother's not injured very much, but the son is. The son's kind of hanging on for his life. She calls her mother. The mother comes down, offers this prayer. The daughter thinks like, okay, mom, say these exact words. And she's just like, seriously, can you just not be here for me right now? She ends up saying this prayer. 10 years later goes by. The son is grown, and that's when all these scary things start happening in her life, in his life, even in the mother's life. So it goes back and forth in time between what's happening to them at the hospital back then and how they're being haunted now. The family secrets come out later. It tells a story of the mother, how she learned about this prayer in the first place, and it tells her whole backstory of how that happened. So with that, I can't really say too much else without giving everything away. But there's a way that Gracie and Lucas figure some kind of way out of this, and I can't really give too much of that away without ruining the rest of the book.
All right.
So it's very twisted the way that it ends. You'd be surprised.
All right. For our readers, all right, this is actually National Audiobook Month. National Audiobook Month. And of course, we celebrate all things reading, all things books. So we encourage you to go to your favorite online retailer, pick up The Warrior Angel by our author, our special guest, Monique Beasley, and you will find out and discover for yourself the family secret. And so the family secret, and see the story being unveiled and everything unfold. So given the warrior angel stands out in this whole realm of horror, this genre of horror, and so what makes this particular book stand out against any current novels with kind of similar titles or themes that might deal with kind of angels and demons?
I think what makes it stand out a little bit is because it's not a typical just kind of a haunting where you're trying to figure your way out of it. It goes like us back and forth in time. It talks about the love between a mother and a son. Everything this mother is willing to do to save her son, and the son is willing to do the same. There's even a lot of friendship moments in there. The people that Gracie works with, there is a backstory there. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of there's more levels of this than just the horror. The horror comes in when on the scenes that it needs to, but there's a tiny love story in there. There's family love in this story. There's a lot of dry humor in this because that's how I am.
Well, that's always wonderful to be able to incorporate who you are as a person, your quirky side, the fun side, the serious side, all those things that you're able to kind of put into a story. Do you feel that you've kind of found your niche in the horror genre? And are there other genres that you like to kind of dive into, or you want to kind of expand, and explore more in this particular area?
Well, the book I'm writing now is also horror.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing to do with demons or anything, but it's another horror. But when I was writing some of the story in The Warrior Angel, when I was, talking about the friendship scenes and like the funny scenes, I actually got into those a little bit. So you never know. I might dip into maybe mystery a little bit. I might dip into something else. It's, I'm just kind of getting started, and my second book will definitely be horror because I'm working on it now, but I'm willing to try other ones too.
Okay, so with your future or the book that you're writing now being in the same genre, do you think you'll move towards even writing in series, like a series, or are you kind of okay? I feel like individual novels or individual stories is the path that I want to take.
At first, I wanted to do just individual novels because when I was coming up with plots for this book, I had so many different ideas and I have them all written down. But the people that I've talked to who read my book so far, they're like, you can totally do another book about this, about, well, I can't say anything, but you can do a different, like, I can't say anything.
You can totally take it to series. This could totally be a series.
So I'm thinking about it. After I finish this one, I might do a second one. I might do a Warrior Angel too. We'll see.
All right. So think, what is something, prior to writing, this particular project, were there any particular authors that you kind of went to as far as, their structure, model, or use of language or setting, that you looked at as to, okay, as far as horror goes, I'm looking at this particular author as kind of a god?
The funny thing is that the whole thing that gave me the idea to make this story go back and forth in time and tell it from different characters' point of views was actually Colleen Hoover. not a horror author. My daughter and a lot of my friends, they read her books, and so I started reading a bunch of them, and they're so good. And they always they talk about the whole story from different characters' point of view, and I love that. So I was like, okay. I was like, I'm gonna try that. But I had to go back in time a little bit to make the story progress itself. But no, when it came to the structure, how I thought of it, that was because of her books that I read.
Okay. So, how has, the different things that you've read, fiction, nonfiction, you know, across genres, if you have a particular genre that you like to read in, um, influenced your own writing?
Um, and honestly, I really don't know if they've influenced it or just made me want to join them. uh, because I mean, I'm never really set on a particular author when I'm shopping for books. I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
here's his, here's one of his books. I'm buying this one.
Mhm.
I read the blurbs on the back. That's what kind of draws me into it.
Mhm.
So, I think the main influence is the entire genre that made me want to start this. Um, but the thing that gets my scary scenes going is the stuff in my head. I think I try to put myself in the story and just be like,
Mhm.
okay, so what can happen right now that'll really scare the crap out of me?
What is it that you hope that readers will, take away from, reading The Warrior Angel? What maybe one or two things you hope they'll walk away with from after having read this story, you know, sort of like how teachers put those wonderful objectives on the board. Having read this story, students will.
Well, number one, I hope nobody out there will now learns that it's not okay to make a deal with the demon. Nothing good ever comes out of it. Learn that, number one. No, but number two, I guess when they pick up this book, they are going to get all the emotions. They are going to get fear. They are going to get love. They are going to get sadness. They are going to be shocked by the end. They're going to pick up a little bit of each emotion, which I hope they will anyway. So,
So, and then this is your debut novel, your debut first time author. Kind of describe your journey from, concept, this is an idea, this is something I'm thinking about doing to actually, you know, now being a published author.
um, well, first was coming up with the idea,
Mhm.
kind of thinking of a plot. I started writing an outline down, things that can happen in each chapter, and then once I started typing, um, I started thinking about, okay, well, what's going to happen next? Because I have no idea how this process works. So I kind of got ahead of myself a little bit, thinking, okay, who's going to edit this book? How much is this going to cost? Who do I get to do the cover? Who do I? And I'm talking to like my sister. My sister is actually an author too, and she's like, well, why don't you just calm down a little bit and just write your story first? So I try to concentrate on just the story first. I did the outline. I wrote everything out. I rewrote everything out, typed everything up. It's a long, long process, and you got to go over and over and over your book, and then you can worry about those details later.
All right.
But
So
it's
is this
really
something,
exciting.
this writing thing, something you saw yourself, always saw yourself doing, or something kind of like a dream deferred?
It's totally a dream deferred. I've always been a big bookworm. I read all the time, and my sister has two children's books out, and she's starting to write her first horror novel, and she was coming to me for advice, and we're going back and forth on things. And I had a big surgery about a year ago, so I had a lot of time in bed for a few weeks, and she was like, you got a lot of time on your hands. I'm surprised you haven't written a book yet. And I was like, huh. I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it a try. So I started writing ideas down, and the more I write, the more I love to. I found like a new passion. Like I I didn't really know I like to write this much, but it's once my husband and kids go to sleep for the night, I sit up with my computer and I start writing ideas down, and it's a lot of fun.
And so, what is something that you kind of learned about yourself as a writer that maybe you didn't realize or were clueless about when you first started writing?
um I don't know, because I mean, all of this is just so new to me.
Mhm.
Like I said, I had no idea that I even liked to write in the first place. But once I sat down with my, just a pen and paper, I started out with just a pen and paper. And my sister's like, how are you even writing this stuff down? She's like, send me what you wrote. I'm like, well, I can't. I can take a screenshot and send it to you. I can take a picture. She's like, you're using pen and paper? She's like, girl, I got to get you a computer. I'm like, oh.
Look, pen and paper still works. Some of us still like note cards and legal pads.
I literally carry this little notebook in my pocket at work. When I'm not with a patient, I'm like, I got an idea.
That is awesome. That is awesome. So, look, there's a little nugget for potential writers. Nothing hurts like or helps like having a little notebook in the pocket. You know,
Seriously.
that you just pull out the pocket with a pen, jot down your ideas, maybe even your recorder, audio recorder, or your phone, and record your idea at the moment. So we got a nugget from Monique right there. Get yourself a notebook and start a little notebook and start jotting those ideas down. So have you, I mean, of course you had your sister who had already published children's books. What's some other advice that maybe your sister gave you, or maybe even, some others gave you that in regards to writing?
I think the absolute best advice I got was from not just from my sister, but I joined a lot of writers groups on like Facebook and Instagram. And whenever I try to ask about a certain step, or I don't know where to go from here, and just any kind of questions about things, and it's like, well, have you written your story down yet? And have you, that is the most important thing. If you want to start writing your own book, just concentrate on writing the book. Don't worry about the next step. Don't worry about who's going to edit it. Don't worry about if your grammar is perfect. Just get your story down before you forget anything. So that's the best advice I can give. It's just write it down.
And that is like really crucial advice, because you really can get, stuck or trapped inside your head because you're constantly thinking about all the million different pieces that go into, from, I guess you could say, from print to publication. We're really, okay, let's focus on the writing itself. Let's get the work, and then all of the other details
that can come later.
So that's really, great advice for those, in our audience, who may be budding authors, potential authors, are in the process of writing. So take it from Monique and from the wise word of her sister and others who have written, that the other parts will come, and to focus and actually write.
Yes.
So right. Put the pen to paper.
And focus on your story. Don't worry about anything else right now.
That's right. So what are your top 3 favorite reads in your genre, or on your overall, favorite to, recommend? Do you have a top 3?
Honestly, each time I finish a book, if it's one that I read really quickly, I'm like, oh, this is my new favorite book. So I don't even know if I could give a top 3. I can give you the last 3 books that I've read, which is like, I've read House Rules by Jodi Picoult. And that book was incredible, by the way. Right now, I'm actually part of a book club in my neighborhood, and we're reading Dreamland by Nicholas Sparks, which is really good so far. And it's had nothing to do with horror, but I'm like, this is what we're reading. Yeah.
That's a jump into a different space than horror. Nicholas Sparks, horror.
Yes. I'm almost finished with it, and I'm really, really enjoying it. The last horror book I read was actually he's a good friend of mine on one of the writers groups that I've met through Facebook. It's called Welcome to Nightmare Island by Devin Cabrera.
Wow.
I don't know if that's his only book out. Like me, I think he's a brand new author, like I am, I believe. But I read his book in like 3 days, and
Wow.
it's really, really creepy, and it's really good.
Okay. That says something about a book when a book draws you, draws you in, and you're so drawn in that you just keep reading and you don't put it down. So
Mhm.
that's awesome.
Mhm.
So so thank you for sharing your interesting reads that are part of yourself as not just an author but as a reader, because our as authors, as persons who write, we also read, and I think it adds depth to even future writing, because
Mhm.
you expand your scope and horizon. You get to see what's out there and see other forms and styles and things of that nature. And maybe it sparks an idea, maybe it doesn't. But at least, hey, I got a point of reference, from something I've read. So now, thank you so super much for spending this time with us. How can our viewers purchase this book and connect with you on social media, Monique?
Well, I am only on, let's see, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram and Facebook, all under Monique Beasley. You can find me there. And so far, my book is, it's only available on Amazon. So you can just search The Warrior Angel or M.A. Beasley on Amazon and it will pop up.
Awesome, awesome. So we are going to follow Monique Beasley, M.A. Beasley, on Facebook, Instagram, and all of her platforms. We're so excited that she was able to share this time with us this afternoon. And I'd like to thank our guest, Monique, for spending again this time with us, and wish you continued success with this debut novel, The Warrior Angel. And I'm serious, she paints such a vivid picture at the beginning that the story really draws you in. You won't put it down. You absolutely finish the book. Finish the book. It's a great read. I'm more than halfway through. Probably would have finished sooner, but I'm a school-based employee, and so we were ending up the school year when I started reading the book. So, end of the year type thing, reading and trying to do wrap up paperwork and lesson plans sort of messed up my reading schedule. However, the book will be finished, so we're excited about this amazing book, The Warrior Angel, and also about what she has next in store for her readers in the future with the book that she's currently working on, and any possible series that she might decide to unveil. So we just like to close with thanking our guest, Monique Beasley, for just spending this time with us. And we're going to tell our audience, make sure you're staying tuned to the PharSide Co-ed Book Club Facebook page for more author interviews and posts as we celebrate in this month of June Audiobook Month, as well as Rainbow Book Month during this month of June. So until next time, many roots, many voices are a part of the infinite story. So plant your seed. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening.